I normally take all my body measurements with a cloth tape. I cannot seem to find the cloth tape at this time. The important thing to remember is that it needs to be flexible. If you do not have a cloth tape, and not everybody does, don't take a tape measure and try to figure out what the length is. You need to take the contour of the body. It is actually best if, I've got a mannequin here, just for an example purposes, this is what this fox is going to be. It is best to take the mannequin, just like your fox is going to be, and set it in a position like the fox is going to be, to take your measurement for that mount. This mount is based on the way it is right now. If you were to take the length coming from your nose, down the head, around the body, down to the base of the tail, that measurement is what your nose to tail, your total length measurement would be. If you just lay it down like this, with it stretched out, that measurement may be different. It won't be much different, but it could be different. So it is best to take your body, take your animal, and set it up the way it's going to be mounted, because that, like with it sitting right here, that constricts the spine and makes that animal actually shorter than it would be elongated like this. And you're probably thinking, how do I hold it up like that and take that measurement? My best advice, little trick of the trade, little tip, is take this body and stick it in the freezer for about an hour and a half or 2 hours. That way it makes it more rigid or whatever. And then you can bring it back, get you something to prop it, stick you a block or whatever on this side, and with this animal being semi-frozen, you can take the shape of whatever you're at. Say if you take a concrete block or whatever you want to put over here to the side, you can then set this animal up as it is pretty frozen but still pliable, and then take your measurement based on that. You can't, it's hard to just set it up here and try to work your tape. Now if you got somebody to help you, that'd be something else, but I don't, and you may not either. So what I would do is take this animal and freeze it for about 2 hours. Whatever it takes to where you can still work it. You don't want it so frozen so hard you can't bend it, or that, you know, defeats the purpose. But if it's to where it can be pliable but still hold its form like this is going to be, or whatever shape you know, mannequin you decide to use. I said it was for that one, but that mannequin is actually for a different fox. Since I do not have the mannequin that I'm going to get for this particular fox, I am going to take a rough measurement. It will get me close, if not, you know, if not perfect. The cartilage that's remaining, come right to the tip. You're going to take and just guide your fingers all the way down, taking the curve of the body, run it down to right where that last bone would be on the tail. I've got my measurement there. Set the yardstick down. Take that, run it out to the end, and just obviously measure like you would anything else. We've got 26 7/8 on that. Record your measurement. That's 26 7/8. Total length. My eye to know the measurement was 3 1/16. Thought I heard something. 3 1/16. That's the only one that you'll take with the skin still on the animal. And you actually do it with calipers. If you don't have the curved calipers, they're kind of like, you know, go down and make the circle, going from the tip of the nose to the corner of the eye. You're not trying to get up on the eyeball. You're not trying to get at the very bottom of the tear duct. What I do is take a caliper just like this. It's just Harbor Freight, $9 or whatever. You take and put it, glove back on. Put it in the corner of the eye socket, just like if it were setting. You can feel that against it, corner of the eye socket, and then bring this in just till it touches the tip of the nose. This is obviously a little shorter than it was, you know, when the nose meat was still on there, but you're going to take it just touching the tip of the nose with it still on the skin. This right here does not need to be down because the eyelid itself will extend down, kind of like the tear duct area will extend down onto the cheekbone. You're not worried about that. You're trying to get the actual eye to nose, so you don't get up on the eyeball and don't get on the tear duct. Stick that in there where you can feel it against the bone and bring that in until it touches. I've got 3 1/16. That's my overall length. Around is 20, whatever I said it was, 26 7/8. Now for around the body, like I say, it needs to be setting in the position that it would be as far as your mount. If you do not have your mount picked out or your mount present, to take around the body, come at the widest spot, which is directly at the base on this last rib right here, and don't stretch it all the way out. It's not going to be setting like that. You're not doing that. Scrunch that thing up. Bring the legs in. Put him, scrunch up where he's as thick as he's going to be. If it's thinner, you can always add to your mount, add to your mannequin, or shave it down, whatever you need to do. You have some, and the skin will stretch some, and you can pin it in a little tighter some. But it's best to get this thing like it would be setting naturally. Push it up there. Make it, make it as fat as it's going to be naturally. Get your measurement. Pull that out. That's 14 1/4. Now I'm just going to just show you for information purposes. Stretch this thing plumb out, just like that. Still on the last rib, just like I was. I have 12 1/8. 14 1/4 to 12 1/8. You can see how much, you're talking about 2 inches, roughly, worth of difference. I got 14 1/4 circumference around the body, as opposed to the 12 1/8. If I buy my mannequin based on the 12 1/8 that is right now, based on the same last rib as I had a while ago, then I'm going to have a lot of slack in there. A lot of slack is probably better than a whole lot of stretch, but it's best if you don't have to do any of that stuff. The more natural that fur can lay, the better off you are. So squeeze that thing in like it would be if it were setting here with a full body. This thing right here, see this bulge on the side? That's just as if it was a real life animal sitting there with its guts or whatever from the bottom of his stomach cavity and his lungs and everything pressing back on the center. It's not stretched out like it was hanging from a fence post or like it was laying on the side of the highway. It's bunched up like this. Take your measurement with it bunched up like that to get your overall circumference. That's my tip on that. All right. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this and that. I have all my measurements taken. Most important, eye to nose, because you don't want to stretch your face and out of disfigurement. The next one is the total length. You don't have as much play with that. You can stretch it a little bit and you can bunch it a little bit, but you can't go too far. This one, around the body, you've got the most play with it. You can add to or take away from your mannequin in order to fit that in most cases. It's better for it to sit as natural as possible. And if you've got those three measurements, you can basically get rid of the remains. All right, I'm going to take a quick lunch break, and we will come back. When I come back, we're going to start working on the eyes, ears, nose, and lip liners, as far as the insides of the mouth, actually rolling those out and taking that apart. This is a rather lengthy process, and it is one of the longest parts of the skinning process is removing the fingers, removing the cartilage from the ears, the nose, any kind of material that's inside the lip line itself, and eyelids. You're going to take it all out. If you're tired, I'm kind of wore out from doing all the rest of this. If you're worn out and you need to take a break, it's better to do that and come back, because this is the most tedious part of the deal. And when you're working on the most tedious part of this project, you don't want to be rushed, you don't want to be tired, you don't want to be anything, because these parts are the parts that are going to show, and they show the most realism. This part in the middle doesn't show anything as realism. It's a rug, basically, that you're going to put back together. The rest of it, your nose, your eyes, when they mute out those pieces of material in a picture, when they're showing a video or something like that, because you can't distinguish that person from anything else. The middle all looks the same. You take out the eyes, presto, you can't tell who it is anymore. Take the nose and the mouth out. You can't tell who it is anymore by just these features right here. Same with the hands. Anything that's this delicate part, you want to be fully rested and willing to spend as much time on just those as you did on taking that part off. So I'm going to take a break, and we'll come back later. All right, thank you. Associate that with that you're ready to start working on the hand yet, and they're still thinking that they're working on the leg, and they don't get that out appropriate. You either mess around and cut it off, or you cut your claw off. In either case, it's not what you're wanting to do. Got just a little bit of bone left up above that, and since there is this tear here, a road rash, I'm not going to try to pop that through. I normally would. If the skin's intact, then you have more freedoms there as far as pulling power without messing anything up. But with animals that have been hit on the highway, you don't always have that luxury because there are going to be road rash tears and things through the skin. You can start to work that bone back up through there, and we're going to get back to down a little farther to that wrist, or whatever you want to call it, area. it's pivoting. That's what we're looking for there. And I'm just going to remove that section where it'll pop through that slit I've made. We just remove the back part there, which would be that part that was left from earlier. It's nice to get that out of your way where you can work with the rest of the fur, but at some point it does have to come off and back through. Now I can pop that through the slit, you know, that we have made without having to go any higher. Anytime you can take care of something without having to stitch it up, it obviously looks as natural as it can look. It needs to be to where you can turn it inside out, as I've stated before, and salt it, pickle it. That's why I like to stay on top of my salting and my pickling, because if that bacteria begins to grow, it will cause all the hair to slip. And this is the thing, that bacteria will continue to grow after you have the fox on the mount. If that hair has already started to slip, if you didn't salt it long enough or properly enough, if you didn't get it down in everything like you needed to, we're down into that dew claw right there. Like I say, there's not a lot of, just going to free that up a little bit. There's not a lot of skin to that one. It's only one knuckle past the knuckle that's connected to the foot. So once you get past that first one, that just little bitty short finger, about all you got to do is clip it off. And then it should, being as how we have it sliced open on the back, come relatively quickly. I guess quick is a matter of opinion. Some vary. Like I say, always working underneath, pushing while you're pulling. That will, once you become more experienced, you'll be able to just almost second nature see the line where your knife needs to go. You got your muscle and bone, and then you've got your skin, but that's all that skin have some sort of membrane connective resistance to what you're working on. Underneath here, that's the pad. It's got the gristle. Now there's a little bit of meat there actually on there. We're down to these knuckles again. Got those exposed. We're going to go ahead and cut those off where we can work with each individual finger. The reason we're working with each individual finger is to get the skin between them, so that each one of those bones come out in the tube. Pull it out, snip it off. You've seen, basically that process is the same as the bottom foot, so I'm not going to go into showing that all over again aspect of time. You'll just take your pliers, pull out each individual toe, work it down one toe at a time down to that last knuckle. Alright, moving on to the head. You got the two cartilage liners of the ear. This canal here is a big chunk of just gnarled cartilage. You're going to start working your way down it, taking a lot of that out at some point. One thing that you're going to want to have in splitting these ears When I say splitting, I mean separating the cartilage from the skin, especially the external skin from that cartilage. This is just a wooden dowel with a sharpened edge on. It's not sharp, it's rounded. Let me rephrase there. Just a rounded edge. We'll be sticking this inside the ear from the bottom first side and just working it down over the top of it. As you work it down, you split, and when I say split, I'm not talking about cutting through the cartilage or the fur, either one. Separate is probably a better word than split. They just call it, well, somebody called it that for whatever reason, long before I got into the business. So that's what they call splitting the ears, and what that does is let you get in there and keep that from rotting. You'll feel that hard area of cartilage there, this canal, and this is one of those things you kind of just have to learn over time. Follow the white areas. Where you see the white, that is areas of cartilage and fat deposits within very small, fine cuts here. See, I'm just taking the point of my knife and just basically tracing anywhere that you see the cartilage separating from the hide, separating from muscle, anywhere that cartilage, and you can feel it underneath. There's a little tag right here of cartilage, and I guess that it's almost like a little bone. It doesn't amount to much, but you do have to push back on this skin. You'll have to get that out of there, because if you don't, there is a little bit of meat, not much, underneath that thing that will cause it to rot. But it's just a little old, it's probably not much bigger than my razor knife or my X-Acto knife blade, and it's just a little tag of cartilage, not necessarily connected to the ear canal cartilage. It is a large, almost, it's a one-piece structure, whereas this sticks off to the side. I don't really know what its purpose is. I guess it's irrelevant. But you have to pull that away from the hide itself, and see how that's starting to separate and peel off. Well, you can see once you start to peel it off that there's white hide underneath it. You wouldn't think that, but there's white hide underneath it all the way down, and that there's meat in between that piece of cartilage and the hide. Anytime you're mounting, whether it be something on the floor, something on the wall, rug, whatever, meat is not your friend. If there's meat involved anywhere, I'm not going to say that every bit of it has to come completely out. That's what some of the pickling process is for. It's a preservative. You'll see how that ear canal is starting to stand up there. That's what the stick in there is for. As you're pushing up on that canal, you're sliding the fur part down over the stick. But that lets you keep pressure on there. And continue to take that little tag of cartilage off. And once you get that tag pulled back, that ear is going to start to unfold. And I guess it would be the area where you got your earlobe and then your ear part with your canal. There's a crook right there. And I guess for a canine, that's basically what that is, because once you get that peeled off, it turns back in on itself. And that will start to unfold. And there's little crooks and crannies in there that you would not probably have expected. You got just your ear butt here. There's a tick. I guess it's thawing out. This is the real life deal right here. If you got ticks crawling on you while you're skinning, you're in the thick of it. But I will say this, I'd rather it be ticks than fleas. This is a time-consuming deal. Here, this is not what I would call the fun part of taxidermy. This is that tag of cartilage that I was talking about. It actually makes a jog back there, and see how that's sticking up? That's just a piece of cartilage just flopping around. It's not what I would call attached to the ear canal itself. It is attached to the cartilage, but it is semi-separate from the ear canal itself. And once this is free, once that piece starts coming off, that ear will start unfolding like it's supposed to. You can see how gnarly. Here's the canal right here, and then here's this other section, and it started to fan out like a butterfly. So it is connected. It is not the same per se, but it is connected. That right there, that wing part, if you've got some decent scissors, and these used to be, I don't know if I can swear about it to it anymore, just cut that off. Get it out of your way. You're wanting to take and open this ear canal cavity up to where it's exposed You will remove some of that at some point when you put your own ear liners in there. I don't have any with me right now, but the ear liner actually has butts made into it, and you will use those instead of these. But you have to be careful not to cut too much of it off right now, because it actually does have fur on it. You may have ear liners and think, well, I can just, cut this stuff off, this cartilage off. But until you have that liner in there and see how much you need, you may cut part of that fur off, and yeah, you've got something to put in its place, but it don't have any fur on it. You've got a cartilage liner in there, and sure, it'll keep your ear standing up, but that's about all you're accomplishing. It doesn't have any fur on it. So be mindful not to just do whatever you want to as far as cutting that ear canal off. I hear different people say different things on that. I'm telling you what I have experienced personally, that until you get that ear liner and start fitting it to that, be kind of mindful of just cutting stuff out of the way for cutting purposes. You can see this white side is the cartilage, and this gray side is the fur and the hide. I'm just taking my knife and running right down that line. It's giving you a guide of where to cut. This is separating. I like to just push straight down on it. You can see I got the gray, I got the white, and I'm just pushing straight down and splitting, like they say, splitting the hide from the cartilage. It is very thin right there. If you make a slip, it is not the end of the world. It's not great, but there is no way to stitch that back up. If you make a split, well, if you make a slit, if you cut through the hide there at the cartilage, you have to glue it back together. You can't stitch it. I mean, you could stitch it up. It'd look like crap, but we're just continue to work down, and you're just following that dark edge all the way down. There's absolutely no reason to get in any hurry on this part right here. If you don't have time to devote to this part of the process, stick it in the freezer and wait till you do have time. These are the parts on the facial features that are going to last a lifetime if you'll do it right, or at least a long time. Keep it out of the sun, if done correctly. And it's the only thing that keeps it looking real. It's also the only thing that if it starts falling apart and disfiguring, it's the only thing that makes it look not real. The point of taxidermy is to take something that's dead and make it look alive for as long as you can after its time is ended. You're recreating life. using the very point of that X-Acto knife, and I'm just tracing that dark edge. As I'm tracing it, I'm squeezing down. I got that stick inside my hand, and I'm squeezing away, pulling the hide and the cartilage, this part here, pulling it away from one another. And you'll see the connective membrane, if you will, between the two. You may have to reposition your stick in there to work different parts of the ear. There are a few little notches and turns in the ear, not many, but there are a few little crooks in there that you'll have to reposition your stick on and kind of work those a little more exclusively. As you get down to the tip of the ear, it will start to spread. That's why that end is rounded. It actually lets you get up in there where that tip is at. If you got it too blunt, it'll only go as far as it'll go by being blunt. With that rounded edge, you can actually get up in there into the tip of that ear a little better. Once you get to the top, be mindful, and you can turn this thing back inside out and stick your hand in the same place where this liner is going to go, up inside the ear, and you can feel and see, not necessarily see your hand, you can see the outline of your hand, your fingers inside between the skin and the cartilage, and you can get an idea of if you have turned that ear to where you can slide the cartilage liner up in there. And that's as far as you got to go once you get out to the tip. But you may think you're to the tip, or you may think you're just as far as you feel like doing it, and that's fine if you don't mind. If you don't mind the hair falling off of it in 6 months. That's the thing about taxidermy work and sticking your foot in your mouth. It will look good enough for long enough for you to really brag on yourself and how great you are at it. And over the next 6 months, it will begin to tell on you of all the little things that you either didn't have time for or you didn't think was important. As it continues to dry, the mouth and the ears, if you pull all those pins too quick, everything will start to disfigure and it won't look natural anymore. It looked so great for that first 2 or 3 weeks that it was still in the drying process and you just couldn't wait to see it and get those pins out. Pull everything too quick and you didn't go far enough turning your ears or your eyes or your lips, your nose, whatever the case may be. You rushed all that, and over the next 3 weeks, a month, 6 months, it'll all start falling apart, and all that stuff you bragged on, people start to question about, did you really know what you were talking about anyway? Remember, you're only doing half of that ear. You're not taking the cartilage completely out. So when you get to the halfway mark and see that you're starting to work backwards towards the other side of the cartilage, the back side of the cartilage, you're going too far there, because you're not trying to remove the cartilage. You may say, well, why not? Well, number one, because it's not necessary. Number two, because that skin is so thin there, I don't know if you could or ought to attempt that. See how this comes? Okay. Now that we've got both ears turned inside out, you can see the white sides of the cartilage and the gray sides of the actual skin of the ear are not necessarily disconnected, but they're turned inside out all the way. You can see to the tip right there. It comes all the way up to a point in that ear. So those are opened up enough to where we can get some salt and pickling agent, the acid, in there. Next we're going to work on, I'm just going to do one eye and one, the upper lip, so I can do the nose and stuff for you to see. This is called turning the eyes. We split the ears and turn the eyes. This layer of skin, this inner eyelid that I was talking about earlier, we're just going to peel it back towards the front. There will be some meat connected there. We're just gonna, what you're doing here, well, I said you're going to do a lot of this by feel. You've got your hands underneath the fur, and you're basically just running your knife across the top of your finger and rolling the skin back towards you. And you'll feel that skin rolling across the top of your finger. But that is kind of your guide on not cutting through the fur. And you're going to start to roll that eyelid back. You'll notice the pink and the white start to separate. And where the pink and white are separating, as you're rolling, you start to see that line. That is going to be your edge that you're working towards. As you get down further to the eyelid, you will start to feel a ridge in there. You're going to keep that ridge between your thumb and index finger and rolling the skin and the hide away from that ridge. As you continue to roll, the ridge will get smaller. Some of this inside eyelid, as far as just the excess skin, can be removed as you go along, just to get it out of your way. But as you're feeling through there, you'll be able to feel that ridge. And without, there's no way for me to describe it really other than that. And as you do this work, you'll know what I'm talking about, because it's obvious where it's at inside there. But you're just taking and basically lancing open that ridge without exposing the fur. Not cutting through the hide, but wherever you feel that ridge at, that means there's meat or something in between you and that ridge. just going to take and continue to roll that back towards the eye itself, or you can roll down, kind of either way here. And you start to see the difference in between the pink color here and the white color there. You're getting